are listening to the Moms in Business podcast, where we get real about all the things on balancing motherhood and still having a thriving business. It is my goal that you hear from real moms, you hear real stories on mindset, time management strategies, and even the moments of crying in the shower, because we have all been there. I'm your host, Misty Shaheen, life and business coach for moms who want the freedom to live life on their own terms without sacrificing their health or family time. Welcome back to the Moms in Business podcast, where we are talking with moms who are in business, who are figuring out how to run a thriving business and still being a present parent. So I'm so excited to introduce our guest today. We have Lily. She is a business owner and a graphic designer. So I'm so excited to talk with her about her story and how she started her business and how she finds balance in all the different hats that she wears. Welcome, Lily.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk today. So I always like to ask everyone who comes on the show, what is your zodiac sign?
Sagittarius.
Sagittarius. Oh, interesting. And you are currently going back to school to get your bachelor's degree, right?
Yes, I'm working on my second bachelor's degree, this time in graphic design.
Okay, awesome. What's your first degree in?
Government and international politics.
Oh,
Quite a difference, yes.
Yeah, quite a difference. So have you always loved to learn, love school?
I mean, school comes easily to me, probably easier than other people. Do I love it? Not necessarily. But at this point, I needed to really gain new skills, because even though I've been in business for a long time, a lot of my skills are really self-taught. And I kind of jumped over some of the basic principles that maybe most everyone should know regarding design. So having this degree has really helped me learn some of those basics, as well as some of the more advanced tools that I can use for graphic design.
Nice. So how did you start your business? First of all, can you tell everyone, what you do, who you do it for?
So I have two different sides to my business. My main business is Syt Biz, where I work with women entrepreneurs who make six figures a year. And I help them by creating a website that they love, that they are proud to show off, instead of, when people ask them, they're like, sort of, I have a website, I don't really like it. And, we help them fix that problem. The other side of my business is Operation Syt Launch. That's my passion project. It used to be just providing discounted website design to military entrepreneurs. But in the past year, I've kind of pivoted it to become more of an all-in-one resource for military spouses who are just getting started in their business. So right now, our focus is still mainly website design, but we're trying to launch courses, coaching, mentoring, accountability, all that sort of stuff to really help people who are just getting started and really need some help getting momentum.
Wow, awesome. Yeah, so what made you decide that you wanted to go in business?
So 10 years ago, my husband was on his second overseas tour in just like the third year of our marriage. He was gone for the first 15 months in Afghanistan. And I had already moved, I think, like 3 or 4 times. And I was like, you know what? A day job just is not going to happen. At the time, he only had one daughter. And it was still difficult for me to really always be gone and to really find a job where I could get the flexibility that I needed. So my sister/business partner was also dealing with burnout at her corporate job, even though she was only there for like a year. She's like, I'm only in my 20s. It's too early for me to hate my life. And we were like, let's just do something together. And funny enough, at the time, we chose website design simply because it was something that her husband was also qualified to do. And it was something that we kind of dabbled in with, MySpace and all that sort of stuff. We really kind of enjoyed the coding part of it. But yeah, then we just decided, let's go into business together so we don't have to deal with bosses and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of women are realizing that maybe the regular workplace isn't necessarily suited for, raising a family.
Right. Absolutely. And again, especially with the military lifestyle, with the constant moves, it just wasn't feasible to keep getting a job every single time that I landed in a new place.
Yeah, and I love that, when you have a business, especially if you're doing it online, you can take it with you wherever you go. So it doesn't matter if you get uprooted and you need to move, or your husband, is getting relocated, or you can just take it with you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I love the flexibility and the freedom that online businesses, have.
Right. And, at the time when we first started, obviously we only had the one daughter, but now I have 3 kids. My sister has 2 kids, and it's a lot going on at most times. So being able to work when I want, being able to set my own schedule, being able to take off whenever I need to. I mean, it's really been a blessing for me to be able to do that. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I was working a regular 9 to 5 job.
Right. So what did you do before you started your business?
I worked a lot of administrative positions. I
Uh-huh.
worked for a nonprofit. I worked for a Mac repair shop. It seemed like different jobs, but at the end of the day, it was me answering the phone and doing stuff on the computer that other people couldn't figure out. So not that different from what I'm doing now.
Right. You were just serving,
Right.
and that translated over well, obviously.
Right.
I always like to talk about where you come from, because a lot of women, they think they want a business or thinking about going into business, but they are just not sure what they want to do or what they have the skills to do. And honestly, a lot of skills that you learn in the workplace can transfer over.
Absolutely. My sister and I actually spent the first 4 years of our business kind of flip-flopping between different things, social media, virtual assistants, and all of that. It wasn't until 2013 where we landed finally on website design. And part of that is that we have, tech skills that just come naturally to us, and the design part of it as well. And for some people, it may not be that easy to make the connection, right? It may not be as easy as I love to knit and I can start an Etsy shop. That has a logical connection. For some people, you might have to think a little bit harder about how you can turn your passions into something that makes money. But for other people, maybe it is just a matter of even looking at your options and trying to figure out what you do, what you love to do, and how can that translate into a business.
Yeah, so true. So I want to talk a little bit about, what was your biggest struggle? When you first came into your own business, what was some of the early things that you had to face and overcome?
I would definitely say one of the hardest things was making the adjustment, like the mindset adjustment from being an employee to being an entrepreneur. The
Yeah.
fact that everything is your problem now, and to some extent, I at least had my twin sister, so we kind of shared that load. But for somebody who's starting as a solopreneur to realize that everything is on you, it's a heavy load to bear, And so definitely I think that that's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And we definitely got support for it. We've worked with different coaches throughout our business. And so that really helped us. But I definitely think that that's something that, we struggled with a lot in the beginning. And something that I struggle until this day is certainly time management, right? Like
Yeah.
the problem with setting your own schedule is sometimes you end up working a lot. And yet sometimes you never feel truly present, whether you're talking about work or you're talking about home. You never feel truly present because you're thinking about all the other things that you should be doing instead. And you just kind of feel bad that you're never really there. And I think it's a struggle that many mompreneurs would have to deal with on a daily basis, because every time you're with your kids, you're like, oh, I have so much work to do. I should be doing it. But then when you're doing work, you're like, I'm missing time with my kids. And it just fuels that constant cycle of feeling like you're not good enough, even though at the end of the day, you're doing the best you can with what you have.
Yeah. Wow. That is so true. I mean, setting boundaries was probably one of the biggest struggles I had for myself, because mom guilt is so real. When you're working from home, you don't just get to close the door to your office. Like your home life and your work life, there's more of a gray area there. And what is the work time and what is family time, and having those clear set boundaries are so important. So do you have like specific times that you work in your business, like days or times?
So my husband tends to go to work at 5:30 in the morning. I wake up to cook him breakfast anyway. So that usually gives me a couple of hours before the kids will get up that I can get some work done. Other than that, there's literally no consistency. Whenever my children decide to cooperate or my husband happens to be home, then I can get a few hours of work in. Fortunately, because my work is website design, like I don't have to work on the same schedule as the clients. I can build their site whenever I have time. Then for me, it's easy. I don't have to be by a computer 9 to 5 in order to do what I need to do. But certainly one of the things that's made our lives easier is after a long time, we finally hired a couple of VAs, and that's really helped get a lot of the sort of monotonous, detail-oriented stuff that I don't feel like doing anyway.
Yeah.
That I'm able to give to her, and that saves me that much more time that I can spend either with my family or doing the more income-generating activities.
Yeah, I think that's so important to just find that help and that support wherever you can get it.
Right. I mean, in my case, because of who my children are, I can't just trust anybody to watch them. So the only thing I can do is get as much support as I can in my business so that I can continue taking care of the kids the way they need to, especially with them being homeschooled now. I can't outsource that. Unfortunately, I can't. So I still have to have time for that in my day on top of everything else. So the best solution is to find as much support as I can within my business to be able to give me the time and energy that I need to devote to my family.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, over the past couple of months, I've been in the process of just more automation and more passive income and passive marketing so that I don't have to be on all the time, because I'm also a homeschool mom of 3 kids and I have a toddler. So yeah, I have a 2-year-old, and, with the older kids, they're a little easier, but with the toddler, nap times are inconsistent right now.
Right.
And so what used to work isn't working anymore. And so it's
Right.
always like a struggle of that flexibility, finding that flexible structure.
I think that that's why in my case, the most important thing has really been getting more organized, right? Because it doesn't matter how much time I have in front of my computer. If I'm spending most of that time trying to figure out what am I supposed to be working on, I will have just wasted a ton of time. Versus since I've started, being more intentional with my project planning and my weekly planning, then as soon as I have an hour, I know exactly what to spend that hour on, and I'm able to, use it that much more effectively. It's still a challenge for me because I'm the kind of person that'll create a to-do list that has like a million things. Like I can do it all in one day when really I can't. And it just gets more and more frustrating and the cycle continues. But when I'm good at it, I pick just 3 tasks that I'm supposed to do on any given day. And that way, whenever the kids cooperate, if they fall asleep, then I can go ahead and spend time doing what I know I need to be doing.
Yeah, that's so important, just to stay organized and be super intentional, knowing what you're doing. This is the amount of time I have, and like, what can I get done in this amount of time?
Right. Because otherwise, like, you could spend so much time in front of your computer and realize I didn't actually do anything all day. So
yeah, and in the beginning of my business, I didn't exactly know what my money-making activities were. So I would just spend hours behind my computer, and at the end of the day, I was like, what did I do all day?
Right, exactly. Although on the other spectrum, I've also started writing down almost everything that I do, whether it's sending an email or connecting with somebody. Because at the end of the day, I look at that list, I'm like, I actually did get a lot done today. Instead of thinking, what did I do all day? I did nothing. I'm like, no, I did plenty, and I'm looking right at it. So I think that that's also a good way to kind of keep yourself centered and realizing that, you did do something and giving yourself credit for the stuff you did achieve.
Yeah, it's so important because we often are our own biggest critics, and we have these big goals and we think that it's going to take a certain amount of time, and often it takes way longer. And giving ourselves that grace and recognizing that it is what it is and doing the best with what you have.
Right. Especially, with the current conditions and everything else that's going on, like stuff happens. And some days you wake up and realize, I'm in a pandemic. I don't have energy to do anything. Okay, great. Then tomorrow's another day. You do what you can to recoup your spoons today and you move on tomorrow. And I think that we all have those days, some people more often than others. And there's nothing wrong with that, because the fact is what we're going through right now is not typical by any stretch of the imagination. And it's not something anybody was really prepared for.
Yeah.
And it's easy as a mom, as an entrepreneur, as a student to have so much pressure and be like, I'm failing here, I'm failing here, I'm failing here. When in reality, you're just trying to get by as best you can. I think we all are.
Yeah. And right now, no one has ever had experience in going through what we're going through. Not our parents, not our grandparents. No one could have prepared us for this. So, recognizing the times that we're in and just giving ourselves more grace, I think is so important right now.
Absolutely. Although in my case, I think I need to learn the difference between giving myself grace and making excuses. I can't speak for anybody else, okay, so I can't train to run a marathon, but I could probably get a 5-minute workout in every day. You know,
Yeah, there
it's
is
about
that
finding that
line
line.
for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so easy right now with the times that we're in to kind of let things go, the things that, once were important to us and things have kind of slid back, maybe your eating or your workout or things you used to be so disciplined in kind of like has taken a back seat. So it's important to know what's like most important to you and do I have the time and energy to really work on this, or is it something that I should just table for a while?
Right. Or again, one thing that I tend to have, and I think other people deal with it too, is sort of an all or nothing mentality, right? That, just because I can't do 5-mile runs every single day doesn't mean any workout I do doesn't count.
Yeah.
Any movement every day is better than no movement every day. And I think that it's too easy, especially when you're a mompreneur and you have so many different responsibilities, that your self-care and your, health is going to be the first to go out the window because you're like, I have to take care of everyone else. But I learned this the hard way. A couple of years ago, I had a pretty big health crisis, and I wouldn't have found out that something was wrong except that my sister was like, hey, let's go to the doctor today. And I was like, all right, why not? And they found a problem that at that time we were able to deal with, but had I not found it at that time, would have been a much bigger issue. So since then, I've been trying to push myself. Like, I take my kids to doctor's appointments every week. Why can't I make time to take myself, I don't know, once every few months? And so I've really been making it a priority to take care of myself. And I just hope that most people, that it doesn't take a crisis to realize that if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to have it in you to take care of everybody else either.
Yeah. It's so important because as moms, like you said, we wear all these different hats. We're so good at taking care of others. And a lot of times our own energy and our own self-care, it's at the bottom of the to-do list. And sometimes it just doesn't ever get accomplished. So, I'm a big advocate for putting yourself at the top of your to-do list, and you will have the energy to do more things and be more productive when you are taking care of yourself. You're eating right, you are moving your body, you're drinking your water. So I love
and again,
that.
it doesn't have to be anything big, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's all these people with all these fad diets. Don't eat carbs. Don't eat sugar. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, look, I'm not giving up carbs because I'm Asian. I'm just not going to do that. Okay, and I'm not going to give up sweets because I can't do that. But what I have done is look at healthier snacks, start drinking less sugary coffees, and it's made a difference for me. And most of the time, even small changes like that eventually add up. And like I said, making any small change is better than just saying, you know what? I'm just going to do whatever I want and hope that I'm okay at the end of the day. So small steps towards your goal are still small steps. And I think that not having such an all or nothing mentality can really benefit most people, really.
Yeah, it's so important. I want to talk a little bit about something that is more of a taboo topic. And I think it's a lot of women entrepreneurs struggle with, but no one really talks about, which is like depression and anxiety. And I know you have some experience with that. So how did you know you're going through that? What are some of the things that you deal with and how you cope with that?
So I think what makes me different from other people, and I've heard this directly from my therapist, is that I'm actually very self-aware. So I know when I'm going down in a spiral. I know when my behavior isn't necessarily healthy. Other people may not have those same cues, but I'm lucky that I do and that I get help when I realize it. I absolutely agree that not just in entrepreneurship, but in general, that depression and anxiety is something that people just don't want to talk about because too many people are like, well, you're blessed. You have a family, you have a husband that loves you, you have adorable children. What do you have to be depressed about? That's not how depression works. And it's certainly not how anxiety works. And so I think that if we were more open about the fact that a lot of people deal with depression on some level, even if some more severe than others, and same thing with anxiety, then it would be a lot easier for people to get the help that they needed. I know that not everybody believes in medication. I do. I'm currently on it to help manage my anxiety. But other people, maybe for them, it's just about taking more time for themselves. That if they were able to work out every day, that's their medicine and that's fine. But for me, it's always been a combination of, therapy and medication that's helped me keep my anxiety and my depression under control. Mostly because it really helps to have a third party who's not involved to tell you you're being ridiculous.
Mm,
No,
yeah,
what you're worrying about will never happen. Let it go, move on. And sometimes that's all you need to hear. But I really think that the bigger thing is that, it also comes in waves and in seasons, right? There have been plenty of times when I was just fine without getting any medication, without getting any therapy. But then a setback will happen, like my daughter's diagnosis, or, my husband getting out of the army unexpectedly, stuff like that, that it makes sense that a person would have difficulty adjusting to these sort of events in your life.
absolutely.
It's funny that someone posted a meme on Facebook the other day and I shared it, where it's like moms are saying, we need help. And other people are just like, you're doing amazing. How do you do that? But nobody actually helps you. And as a special needs mom, I hear people say it all the time. I don't know how you do it. I barely do it. I hang on because I have no choice and because nobody will help me because they can't handle my children. And so I think that what we need is, instead of saying we support moms and instead of saying we're going to help people, to actually help those people. And part of that is in talking about the things that people deal with, like anxiety, like depression, and helping them to realize that those things are perfectly normal and that
Yeah.
there are ways to deal with them, instead of just saying, let's just not talk about it. I'm sure it'll get better. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Not if you ignore it. I guarantee that.
Yeah, I think we are coming to a place where it is becoming a little bit more normalized, but there's still so much work to do. There's still a lot of people who have a lot of shame and guilt because of those things that they have going on, and they don't want to admit it, let alone ask for help. And I
Right.
think it's a common theme, especially among women, that we don't like to ask for help.
Right. There was another thing I saw online that was like, what would it be like if we treated other injuries or other diseases the way we do anxiety and depression? Like, you have a broken ankle. Have you tried not walking on it? No, you would treat it, right? You would treat a broken ankle. So why would you not treat depression or anxiety the same way that you would? And again, that treatment may or may not include medication. It may or may not include therapy, but it does include looking at what you're dealing with and dealing with it. And I think that that's kind of the missing piece for a lot of people.
Yeah, closing the door and not even, acknowledging it doesn't make it go away.
It sure doesn't. I have learned that the hard way many times.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know, it is a taboo topic, but it is something that I think needs to be addressed more. And we need to just talk about it, more and more, so that it becomes normalized to talk about these things that we're going through, talk about how we're feeling. And, when you feel like you can talk about it, there's probably someone else who's already been through it, and say, hey, this is what worked for me, and maybe you can try it, and that's where solutions are found.
Or when you're struggling with something and you think something is wrong with you because you're the only person struggling with it, but as soon as you speak up, you see so many other people like, I'm going through the same thing. And you're like, oh my gosh, so it is normal. What I'm going through is absolutely normal, especially when you're talking about motherhood. I was telling my sister that I actually love the fact that there are now these blogs about motherhood where they're like, motherhood's not perfect. And sometimes my children irritate me, because when you're struggling and you're like, everybody else is doing fine, everybody else is smiling all the time, and they look perfect and their children are perfect. Nobody's perfect. Okay, they're just not. And I think that admitting, whether you're talking about motherhood, whether you're talking about mental health, or even entrepreneurship, that there's bad and good to everything, will kind of help people when they are struggling, because they realize that it's absolutely normal to be struggling and that it's absolutely normal to need help. And too many women, myself included, kind of try to be a one-woman show and manage everything all on their own. But realistically, it's not sustainable. You're going to need help in some way, shape, or form, whether, again, it's in your business or your home. Like me, I finally hired a cleaner because I'm so tired of cleaning this house that nobody ever leaves. Like, sometimes you just have to get that help if you really want to take care of yourself and to be able to, stay sane with everything that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. So good. So I know you have a Facebook Live show. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So we have a show called Chatting Over Coffee. It's every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Although we had so many people sign up to be guests that we're going to start doing Saturday shows too. And it started out that we were like, I want to talk to women about their journey in entrepreneurship. and how they got started, what lessons they've learned, blah, blah, blah. And it has not turned into that at all. I'm still interviewing women entrepreneurs, me and my twin sister interview women entrepreneurs, but the topics tend to go pretty much anywhere. You know, we've had fitness coaches and we've talked about the importance of what you put in your body and moving constantly, that sort of thing. We've talked to public speaker last week who was talking about culture in schools and how we need to focus on actually creating a culture that fosters success instead of just getting kids in and out the door. So I think it might be easier if we had like a set agenda, but I think it's actually more fun this way. The conversations are much more natural because we don't necessarily talk about anything specific. And, you know, I think it's entertaining. I can't speak for other people.
Yeah, I love that because it's not so like curated and you never know what the conversation, how it's going to go. And, you know, when you tune in, you never know what you're going to get. But I'm sure people who are tuning in, that's the exact thing that they needed.
Right. I really like what it's actually become, even if it wasn't what we intended in the first place. But I mean, the other intention really was to be able to connect with other people outside of our house on a regular basis. And that we've definitely been able to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think connection is so important. And that just shows you like things don't always go the way we planned it to go, but it's always perfect just the way it happens.
Absolutely. I mean, my journey into entrepreneurship is absolutely that. For the longest time, I thought I was going to be a lawyer, hence the government and national politics degree. But now I'm the furthest away from that and I'm exactly where I want to be. So even when things come up, most of the time you end up exactly where you were supposed to.
Yeah, I think just the more you can follow your heart and follow where you're feeling led and guided to go, then you will end up on your path.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that we got to talk about these things today. I'm so glad that we had you on. You know, can you tell our guests if they want to connect with you further, where can they find you?
So our main website is sytbiz.com. And for our passion project, Operation Syt, Launch.com. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/sytbiz, and Instagram, instagram.com/sytbiz_OSL.
Okay, awesome. And that will be in the show notes as well. So we just want to thank you for, you know, connecting and, you know, bringing some of these topics up to the forefront for, you know, the woman entrepreneur who is just starting her business or getting ready to start. So do you have any final piece of advice for the woman who is thinking about starting a business?
Get help. Get help as much as you can because there are other people who've already done it and there's just no point in reinventing the wheel.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. So yeah, it's so important to just find those people who you relate to and who are further along on the path and you can just like walk in their footsteps.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to connect. And if you are interested in connecting more with Lily, you can find her links in the show notes. Did you love this episode? I would love to connect with you and hear all of your ahas. Do me a favor, take a screenshot right now. Tag me on IG your biggest takeaway. You can find the podcast at momsinbiz_podcast. And if you haven't joined the party yet, we are hanging out over on Facebook. We have a private group called Moms in Business, and this group is all about connection, community, and collaboration. So if you haven't joined us yet, please do come over and join in on the conversation.